Welcome, online presenters, to the August edition of the Speechathon. The Speechathon, where we have speakers, we have evaluators, and we have a lot of fun as well. It gives me great pleasure that we've got four speakers today. There's going to be Antoinette, there's going to be Krishn, there's going to be Birgit, and then it's going to be Assyl. And we have evaluators assigned for them. And today, as a special measure, we're going to have facilitated or group evaluations on each speaker. Therefore, make sure you stay tuned, you listen, and get ready to feed back. Today's first speaker is Antoinette Trim. Antoinette is actually doing the engaging humor path, and the level of that is a level 3. And that is the Understanding Vocal Variety project. Many of us are of the view that we can understand others, but understanding our own selves can be hard to understand. This presentation will highlight the various aspects of self, which will serve to understand others better and even our own selves. With a speech entitled Understanding Self as it relates to memory, social interactions, and communications, please give a very warm hand for Antoinette Trim.
Good day to all my Toastmasters. The question is, what is self? Someone can ask you a question, who are you? A person may choose to respond by saying his or her name. They may talk about their nationality, their ethnicity, and their interests. But who are you really, with further questioning? The respondent may choose to express their feelings, their beliefs, and their knowledge. In a nutshell, the individual just described self in his or her present state, which can be very dynamic at times. Furthermore, self does not exist in a vacuum, but rather it encompasses our memory, which include our state of mind, our social interactions, and even communication. This is just a description of self in layman's terms. An inescapable aspect of self is understanding oneself, especially in our adolescent years. This is particularly important as it becomes a bridging gap between adulthood, from childhood into adulthood. And this also can impact negatively or positively at the point of maturity. Consequently, the development view of self often occurs in our teenage years, in which a person can have identity crisis. The individual can become very insecure of his or her identity, which may be due to the expanding and expected pressures of life. It's interesting to note that parents can experience the most troubling of times with their adolescent sons and daughters. And this can be attributed to identity crisis, a state of confusion and conflict. When we refer to someone as saying, don't bother with him, he not change, that statement is an attempt to refer to the person's core self. The core identity is a stable sense of who we are, and this can be very difficult to change at times. Many of us are of the view that we have remarkable memories. There are two types of memory that I would like to refer to in this presentation. There's the autobiographical memory as well as the social memory. It is interesting to note that the autobiographical memory is developed gradually, that is, during the stages of man, from childhood, then to adolescence, and then to adulthood, which also incorporates some cultural aspects. Social memory these with specific events, which are often propagated via the media to either surreptitiously lead the public down a certain way of thinking, or just merely to remind us what happened. Many of you may be acquainted with the speech, "I Have a Dream" by Martin Luther King Jr. In our social interaction with each other, we must communicate. Here it gives us the opportunity to learn from each other and about each other. It also includes some aspects of prejudice. How surprising at times that a teacher can differentiate one's styles of writing. And in some cases, it can even differentiate if it was a male student or a female student. Therefore, our communication styles are shaped by the gender identity, which has been salient for us. Therefore, it shows that our language, whether verbal or nonverbal, can be very descriptive of our identity. In essence, just like colors are derived from a mixture of primary colors to yield one color, self is the composition of our memories, our social interactions, which include our biases, our communication methods, both verbal and nonverbal. All of these components collaborate into making and identifying our unique selves. Back to you, Toastmaster of the Day, Nick.
Thank you very much, Antoinette. Very appreciative of that. Let's have Krishn to facilitate the evaluation. And timer Roxanne, are you good with the timing that Krishn is going to arrange for you? You're muted.
So we're going to do that round robin style evaluation right now. It's 1 minute, 30 seconds. So Roxanne, just to keep your life simple, just show only red at 1 minute, 30 seconds for each free segment. It's easier.
Yeah.
All right, beautiful people. We are going to start with trying to add value to Antoinette's speech. Remember, we are evaluating the speech, not the speaker. And it's always hard, especially when we have a lovely lady. Yes, I'm nicely married, no problem there. But let's dive in right now. So here's my first question to you. We've listened to the speech. What is at least one recommendation you would have for Antoinette right now? So I'm going to start with Toastmaster Assyl. Would you like to unmute yourself and share at least 1 or 2 recommendations you have for Antoinette, the positive, her strength?
Antoinette, I really enjoyed your speech, and I love that you talked about social interaction, that it's very important. We relate to that. And what I like also, you use your gesture showing all circles, but your voice sounded monotonous, so maybe you should work on your vocal variety. Is that it, Krishn? Why did you?
Right, we want to focus on the positives, the commendations. We have coming up next the recommendation, but please go on.
So we're only going. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. It's all right. We are learning. I would have done the same thing, Assyl. So, do you have anything else to say before I move on to the next victim? I'm sorry, the next evaluator. Okay, I'll move on to the next person. Birgit, what is one recommendation you have for Antoinette? At least one.
Okay, so I'm a little bit confused about what you just said now.
So what is one recommendation? Sorry, what is one commendation, a positive, a strength?
You said that to me, recommendation. That is why I got confused.
I apologize. It's just too much coffee and too much after potting.
You convention person, you. Okay, so
please go ahead.
Okay, so Antoinette, actually, I really enjoyed it because I think you did a lot of research So coming at different ways that you can define identity, I really liked that aspect because yeah, you had different definitions and you had a couple of good examples because yeah, normally hearing the word, kind of social memory, I would not have associated that with, kind of something that happens in society. Maybe I'm just too social media oriented. So I'm glad that you took the time to define each one of those because yeah, I think they're good ways to think about it, which I frankly had not thought of before. So I appreciate the fact that you did a lot of research and you came up with some examples regarding that.
Thank you, madam. Now, if anyone else has anything to add as commendation, positive, please raise your hand or unmute yourself before we move to the next segment. Toastmaster Nick.
Hi. One commendation, I really like the way Antoinette speaks because she really does enunciate and speaks pretty clearly all the time. And I thought that was really good. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So that's what we're looking for, short and sweet. I'm also putting you on the spot. Toastmaster Lakshay, over to you, sir. Please unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you. What I liked about the speech was it was in sequence. The speaker the, what topic she was wanted to tell, it was very clear, and it came into sequence from childhood to adolescent. Sorry for wrong pronunciation, and to adulthood.
Thank you. So we're going to move now to recommendations. Not the negatives, but double positives. What can Antoinette do differently to take that speech to a higher level? So we'll start by people showing or raising their hands. Who would like to go first? This was the Nick.
Thanks. I think, Antoinette, I said that your voice was clear, and the project here today is about vocal variety. In terms of emphasizing the words, in terms of adding a little bit of emotion, a little bit of drama. I know that it's quite a complex topic, and you made it as understandable as you could for us, which was brilliant. But look at the vocal variety. Think of ways to go up and down the scales like this a little bit more. Okay, it'll improve you. Thank you.
Thank you, Toastmaster Nick. Anyone else would like to share? Birgit, please go ahead.
Yeah, I think I'm going to keep going down the story tack. I would have liked more stories, actually, as an illustration. Because, and maybe that hit home because you used the Martin Luther King example, but I would have liked more examples and more stories as you went through it. And I think that might, as other people have said, help with the vocal variety, because then you can kind of break out of the explanation phase and go into a little bit of storytelling. I think that would have helped support your points a little bit better too.
Thank you, Toastmaster Birgit. Anyone else? Please share. Toastmaster Linda, any recommendation for our speaker?
Well, I found myself wondering as I was listening if it had been written out. In other words, if you were perhaps reading it as opposed to using bullet points and speaking more spontaneously. Because I guess having some higher degrees and having spent a fair amount of time listening to people lecture, I value a more spontaneous style. So that's just speculation on my part. Of course, I have no way of knowing, but I thought that was what came to me.
Thank you, madam. Last recommendation for Antoinette before we move on to the final portion, commendations. Anyone? Yes, Toastmaster Nick?
What you can do, depending on how the setup goes, if you're having notes or bullet points or whatever you can have a really newfangled technological teleprompter. And I have one here with me. And you can see it's a piece of paper that I can actually hang over here. I can put a hole here where the camera is and put it over, and I'll be still be looking at the camera.
We cannot see that because it disappears in your background.
Yes, with your amazing golden background, it's just being swallowed in it. But I think Antoinette, you got the point, right? With having the paper next to the webcam. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And put a hole on, right.
Yeah. So thank
I think I
you.
like, sorry, Bridget, say, with respect to the storytelling, I guess if I go into, because I have a problem with vocal variety. I don't know if to go up, when to go down, that sort of stuff. So I believe if I incorporate the storytelling, that may help me, as well as Linda's thing where in terms of reading. I was reading some parts, but some parts I remembered it. So I was able to do it fluently without reading. So some parts I was reading, some parts I remembered. But thanks a lot, and I will certainly try to do my best next time.
Thank you, Toastmaster Antoinette. Final part of commendations. Would anyone would like to share the positive side, the strength of Antoinette that we haven't heard so far? I'd like to share one item. I think it's the energy and the smile that you have. I think it's quite addictive, I would say. Maybe that was to what one of your evaluators, Nick, was referring to. There's that presence that you have. It it goes beyond that vocal variety challenge because I can relate. English is not my first language; it's my third language, and to think in one language and to speak in a different language, it's always a challenge. But I think that energy that you put in front, I would really leverage on that energy and going out uh, on a limb here. I would love to see more physical gestures without dramatizing the hand gestures, using your whole upper body, but without going over the top. That would be something that I think would have, a punch to your delivery. Anyone else would like to share before we close this first segment of round robin?
Okay, I think we're good.
Good. Okay, this
Thank
didn't
you,
go
Krishn.
too bad. Mr. Toastmaster, back to you.
Thank you, Krishn. Now, our second speaker, he is going to give us a speech today. And it's up to me to decide which topic he's going to speak about. And this is a kind of like a test, an impromptu type of speech, but an impromptu prepared speech, would you believe? And what he's like to do is he is going to actually do one of the following topics, and I'm going to choose. So, why Toastmasters, leadership, the hidden side of Toastmasters, the E in Rise, my convention experience, the Home Minister conundrum. So, of those 5 topics, I've decided to choose the E in Rise. And Krishn, you have 5 to 7 minutes, and I will actually manage the evaluation for you afterwards. So, with a speech entitled The E in Rise, please give a really warm hand for Krishn Ramchan.
And please keep applauding because you're here on a Sunday morning, afternoon, evening, putting time aside to be and behave and act as a Toastmaster, RISE. So I'm going to ask everyone here to participate with me. The R is RIS. Please unmute yourself. I want everyone for this segment to just unmute yourselves and just have this interaction. Don't worry about the background noise. It's all good. So R is for respect. I is for, oh wow,
Integrity.
you're so full of energy, everyone. Integrity. S is for, anyone?
Come on, everybody, service.
Service. Oh my God. One of you was not sinking, but literally sinking in her thoughts. And it happened to me when I got the question what RISE was. And I was president at the time of my on-site club. So we went over the R, respect, I, integrity, S, service. But from my perspective, as a Toastmaster, as a club leader, and especially as someone who wants to really grow in his own life outside of Toastmasters, the E is what glues all of them together. Excellence. If you're here right now, whether you're a guest or a member. It means in your mind and in your heart, you have that willpower to be excellent. We have two guests from two different time zones. Why are they here? One of them mentioned this is a club where there are very good speakers, very good speakers. And I'm not sure, but I feel that he also used, if he didn't, that's how it came across to me. Excellent speakers, excellence. Now, the thing about excellence is not something that is just something we can buy. I'm so happy there's no grammarian, because the grammarian would have delivered an excellent report. Krishn, you use something twice. That's an example of the type of grammarian report we expect at our normal meetings. But excellence is something, is an item. It's a thought, a way of processing things. It's how we feel. It's how we are. I cannot be excellent in my Toastmasters life as a club member, doing all my speeches. I cannot be excellent as a club leader, leading as a president or the vice president education or the sergeant at arms, and be so as a corporate person, be so as a friend to the people I know, be so as a father. Say you can fire a bad Toastmaster. The only way you do it is you write to World Headquarters and you get the person out. But can you fire a bad father? I don't think so. And I remember that time when I held my daughter. It was the first time on earth. And it was my first time looking at her and telling myself, oh my, what do I do? And one thought came to my mind. Krishn, you cannot mess up right now. You've messed up enough. You've done all the pleasures. You've done all the sins. You've done everything you could have done until now. And it's a girl. It's a girl. So from that day on, I started looking at women differently. Yeah, you do as a father. From that day on, I started reading about how to be a good parent. And from that day on, I started to practice excellence in my personal life. It's shocking when I think about it right now. I started practicing excellence when I became a father, not when I was a husband, not when I was a son. Do you know how crazy that sounds? It's so crazy. I don't know if you can relate to this, but that's how I learned, by doing and messing up and really realizing. That's my way of learning. And then it went on. So that was with a daughter. Then a couple of years after that, the sun, the cyclone, the little boss came around in my life. And when I saw him in my hands, I'm like, okay, now forget excellence. You need to go further, because that little guy is going to copy everything I'm going to do. That's what we do, right? As daughters to our mothers, as sons to our fathers, as members to our leaders. That's what we do. Even in Toastmasters, we don't listen to what people tell us what to do. We do what we see them doing. So what I mean by that is excellence is a way of life. If you choose that way of life, or you can go the other way and be so-so. Now, so-so, from my perspective, is me taking a break. So-so, it's not that bad, because we need that. We need that kind of time where we can just put the feet up, have some moments of relaxation, and then get back on the excellence train. But excellence, if you choose it right now, and you start to think about it, and you feel it, your life gets better. Everyone's lives around you gets better. Not only Toastmasters, but even outside. So that's why the RISE sits on the platform of excellence. So my fellow Toastmasters, because I think I'm preaching to the choir here, you already are excellent human beings. You're Toastmasters for excellence. Just take it further, because here's the question now. What is beyond excellence? Find out in the next speech. Mr. Toastmaster, back to you.
Thank you very much, Krishn. Thank you. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to have 1.5 minutes where people can interject with comments. We don't have so much time. We're going to try and get two or three or four people in. So try and come back with the first commendation that you like to give, and make sure it's concise and succinct. And Roxanne, can we please have on your screen 1.5 minutes? Are you able to show that, please? That will really help us out. Thank you.
Okay, 1.5.
Yes, please. So each of these three segments will be 1.5 minutes. Okay. Now, what I'd like to do is to invite somebody to give us a commendation for Krishn's speech, please. Just please raise your hand. Okay, Assyl?
Yeah, Krishn, you are my favorite speaker, and I was looking forward to your speech today. And thank you for sharing your personal story, and that touched my heart, learning about being a parent. And I really loved your pace and pause between when you hold. So it was great to follow your thoughts. That was one recommendation.
Thank you, Assyl. Right, Roxanne, you had a commendation. Please unmute yourself.
Along the lines of Assyl, he was animated in his face. That rise and fall and the moderations in pacing and inflection brought life to the story.
Thank you. One more. Who has one more? Please raise your hand. Go ahead, Antoinette.
I liked how Krishn incorporated his personal life into Toastmasters. And I believe that most of us, or all of us, could identify with some aspects. And that is what made it alive. And I'm really looking forward to many more of his speeches.
Thank you, Antoinette. And that endeth the first segment. Now, the next segment will be 1.5 minutes again, and this time with recommendations. Just tell us what you think can improve in speech, and just a very brief example of perhaps how. Okay, so please raise your hand. Assyl, yes.
Krishn, at the beginning, when you start asking these questions about something like that, so I didn't get that. Maybe next time when you have those questions, you need to prepare your audience, because we are kind of, it's hard to concentrate and take that, action to answer those questions. Especially, it's not common, and we don't hear those questions every day. So you need to give maybe example first, and then say, what do you think these, acronyms means? So something like that. So.
Thank you, Assyl. Who's next? Any other recommendations? Please raise your hand. Go ahead. Any recommendations? Roxanne.
Your hand gestures when you said so and you referred to certain things, there were some that really did add to the story, brought us along, and things that we could move on. There were others that seemed to be more of a distraction, that sort of almost like crutch gestures, that your story would have been better if we weren't seeing them at all.
Thank you, Roxanne. I'm just going to add one recommendation. I feel that sometimes in this particular speech, get to the point earlier, meaning talk about the excellence and then set the scene. And but start getting to the point earlier. You'll have 1 more minute for your speech. Okay. Thanks very much for everybody for that, the recommendations. And now 1.5 more minutes again, and this time again for commendations. And I'm going to come to a couple of people now. Linda, what did you think as a commendation?
Well, I actually liked a lot of his gestures. I was very interested to hear what Roxanne said, and I could appreciate her point, but I also thought that many of the gestures were really excellent. I think that in my own Toastmasters club, in this whole Zoom environment, the gestures is probably the worst part for many of our speakers, just trying to figure out how to make it work. And I know for myself, I gave a lecture in a professional environment, and when I saw the recording, my hands were out here. It was like I was the creature from outer space or something. So I appreciated how well I thought he did.
Thanks, Linda. Let's go to Lakshay. Do you have something that you liked about Krishn's speech?
Uh, what I found is that initially when he was asking questions, some of us were not responding to what stands for OE, but the speaker seems to be very confident in answering, and that was not that his the next part of the speech was not affected by people not answering. So he seems to be very confident speaker. Even if someone has not responded, he went with the content what he wants to deliver. Thank you.
Thank you, Lakshay. I'm just going to add a very quick commendation on that, in that there were lots of engagement, lots of questions asked, and unmuting the audience, inviting engagement. And I thought that was very powerful as well. So well done, Krishn. Thank you very much for that. Now we're going to move on to our third speech. The third speech is going to be Birgit Starmanns. Now, Birgit is doing a level 1 in the presentation mastery path, and this is her introduction. It is indeed possible to say the same thing multiple times, yet put a different emotional spin on the same words and the same gestures. Birgit will illustrate how such a different spin can impact your meaning to the audience, with a speech titled A Matter of Interpretation. Please give a very warm welcome for Birgit Starmanns.
Good for you. That could have many interpretations, actually. Normally, we think about it in terms of, hey, good job, that's really good for you. Now, a dance coach that I've had is a Brit. And he was explaining one day that depending on the way that he says it, it could be, yeah, mate, good for you, which is very, very dismissive. So when he said, after I did a certain routine with my dance instructor, good for you, I said, Jason, which one do you mean? Was that really good or was that not as good? So quite honestly, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And this guy was very sarcastic. So you learn how to read people. And I have a couple of different examples of using the same words to basically say different things. And some of it depends on the words that we emphasize. So I'll give you an example. I saw you talking to that man. Well, there are different ways that you can say that. I saw you talking to that man. Well, it's all about you talking to this person instead of maybe me talking to the person. How dare you jump into my conversation? I saw you talking to that man. Well, talking as opposed to yelling at him or as opposed to engaging in some other activity. I saw you talking to that man, not that woman, not that child, but to that man. So depending on how we actually say something, we can have a whole different meaning. And then we can also use that in different storytelling devices. So there's a famous example by Robert Frost. At the end of Stopping by the Woods on a Snowy Evening, he says, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. So even though it's repetitive, and Antoinette mentioned Dr. Martin Luther King, he didn't say I have a dream in the exact same way every single time, but there's a different emphasis depending on the story that came afterwards. So these are good examples of using the same words, but then using them in a slightly different way. Now there's an example in music, and there are a couple of different ways, and everybody knows how to sing Over the Rainbow. But there are two very popular versions right now. One is the classic Judy Garland version, Over the Rainbow, Here We Are in the Wizard of Oz. And it has a very wistful feeling associated with it. And the focus is completely on her voice as she sings Over the Rainbow. Then there's a very popular version right now by a singer named Israel from Hawaii. It starts with a ukulele. It's a completely different interpretation because the ukulele starts and he starts humming, and it's a very lighthearted, but you can actually say islands in the breeze kind of feeling, the way that he actually sings that song. And it's a different interpretation. And we've seen different singers. That's why they call it cover songs. Somebody sings it originally, other people cover that same song, and they have their different styles. But even as one person can do music, and I'm gonna sing you one line. And I just picked one line, I'm not singing the whole song, don't worry. But there's a song from Alleluia, and that song, oops, apologies, that should have been on mute. There's a song, it's called Alleluia, and different people interpret it in a different way. So there's a kind of a classic way of, if I just use what is written in the music. It goes the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall, the major lift. Very kind of blah, no vocal variety, as we would say in Toastmasters. Most singers use a crescendo going all the way up. It goes like this, the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall, the major lift. We're going from very low to very high in terms of volume. Now there's my favorite version that kind of takes a more roller coastery approach. It goes like this, the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall, the major lift. So we see that there's kind of an up and down. It's the same song, it's the same singer, but there are different interpretations, and some of them really depend on what comes afterwards. And then I also want to give you a little bit of an example when it comes to dance, because we use gestures a lot in Toastmasters. Now, I can use just a very simple example in terms of, I'm just going to point to you. Well, nobody just kind of goes like this, right? There's pointing, very direct. There's more free flowing. There is more, I'm starting direct, but I'm going to take that further. So let me take that a little bit further in terms of dance. So if I'm going to do a gesture that's basically circling my arm, I can start here and I can do very direct at you. I can start right here with the arm and I can go very free flowing at you, which is a more romantic gesture. I can pretend that it's tango and I can start very, very directly and then finish out towards you. Again, same arm movement. I'm basically going in a circle. I'm ending up pointing at you, but it's a very, very different way of going about it. And it also conveys different emotions. For example, the more floaty version, that's a waltz, a very romantic, a very princessy version. The tango is very aggressive. So if I start pointing at you in a very direct way, that is a very intense, we call it a challenge line in tango, actually. So I'm challenging somebody. It's me against him. Yeah, basically like the partners are throwing each other around on the dance floor. So again, different emotions and the way that you do it. And it really bothers me sometimes when I see somebody in a tango using a very free-flowing motion, because that is not the character of the dance. And there's a dissonance that happens. So things like gestures, things like music, things even the way that you say words can be interpreted in very different ways to bring out different pieces of emotion. And if you didn't quite hit it, as we say in theater, one more time with feeling. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Birgit. Thank you for that. Krishn, would you like to take the evaluation? Would you like me to do it?
I can take it up, Mr.
Thank you.
Toastmaster. So once again, congratulations to Birgit. Let's start by asking our members, please raise your hand if you want to give your first commendation to our speaker. Please raise your hand, or I'm going to just call upon you. And Madam Timer, it's 1 minute 30 seconds. Thank you so much. Okay, Linda, what did you like about Birgit's speech? And yes, two other ladies just raised their hand, but Linda, please go ahead.
I thought it was a great speech. I thought it was extremely valuable. It had a lot of excellent information that I think we can all apply to our own speaking. I know for myself, I frequently feel like things that I say or do can be misinterpreted. In other words, the impression the person gets is not what I meant to say. And that can be because of problems with body language or vocal variety or whatever. But I thought it was an excellent speech. I also liked the drama of the different illustrations from dance. I thought that was really excellent and well done.
Thank you, madam. I'll go to Antoinette, Madam Timer. So Toastmaster Antoinette, you wanted to share?
Yes, I liked Birgit's speech because traditionally we would all sit down and do our speeches. But I liked the way that she stood far back and she did her various emotions, you know, style of dancing. I really like that. And I say maybe one of these days, maybe I can do that in my style, that is. Very good,
Thank you,
Birgit.
madam. Thank you, Antoinette. Toastmaster Roxanne, final words, please.
She came across as comfortable and confident, which draws us in, but that's not what I'm going after. What she delivered for us was something that could be immediately actionable by us. We could take what we got from her and make a difference in our very next speech if we paid attention and just implement what she brought across.
Thank you, Roxanne. I think those are all valid points. Now, Madam Timer, please reset your timer for the recommendations, 1 minute, 30 seconds. Now, how can we help Birgit improve on what she already has as a speech? Who would like to get started? Linda, please go ahead.
Yes, first of all, the goal of this speech was to incorporate previous feedback, and she provided me with what that was, and she did in fact incorporate what she was asked to do. In terms of suggestions, my feeling was that it was a little rushed because I thought there was a little bit too much content. And in terms of what to dispose of, what I would suggest is that the examples used, like for example, the Over the Rainbow with Judy Garland and the other singer, I wasn't familiar with the other singer, and so I couldn't really appreciate it. I thought that the examples that she gave that were personal, like singing or dancing, were much more effective, and also eliminate that variable of does the audience actually know the particular reference that I'm making.
Thank you, madam. Interesting points. Anyone else? All right, I'd like to share a couple of items here. Birgit, I believe you're using your mobile device to stream at the moment. Fantastic. It's one of the hardest things to do. I do have a recommendation. It's with the edges, because at times I saw your hands disappearing. The question is, was it intentional, or maybe it's something like you don't want to have for the next time? So maybe go back or just shift the orientation of the smartphone.
The reason is it's actually an iPad. When I tried it earlier, well, actually yesterday, when it was horizontal, then you could only see me from here up, and I felt you couldn't really see the top of my body very well. And when I first did it, I just used the pointing examples, and I was told, we want to see more of your body. So I'll have to play with how to fix that because I've got limited space. So I wanted to incorporate the feedback of show more of your body for the dancing to be more effective. But yeah, I also understand it's going to be a little limited. So have to be creative in terms of doing that.
Thank you, madam. Thank you. We now move on to the third segment. So Madam Timer, please reset for 1 minute, 30 seconds. Good points, recommendations you have for Birgit. And I'll start with one. I think it was fantastic the way you use your background, because I was thinking, okay, she's going to stay in front of me. And then you decided, no, hold on, I've got more. You moved back and I saw you use that stage, and the energy, it wasn't distracting. It wasn't discomforting. I just wanted you to keep the demo of the dancing, of the movements. And I think that was very well done. I'd like to see more of that in your next delivery. Anyone else would like to add to the commendations? Lakshay? Yes, please go ahead, sir.
So this is my privilege to hear Brigit's speech for the second time. In the normal meeting, I've heard one speech where she has motivated us when she was not feeling bad, we were not feeling good, and then she came back. And this speech is also related to something where she, she is giving us an idea like how we need to speak. Because when I was listening to her speech, it reminded me sometimes I react when my dad asks me something rather than I respond quietly and what he's asking. So I would take care of words what I speak to my family members. So thank you, Brigid, for your speech today.
Thank you, Lakshay. Thank you for sharing.
Yes. I
Antoinette, please
also
go ahead.
like, oh, sorry. I also like Birgit's speech in respect to, I can understand every word that she says, because in this environment, I have to, for some speakers, I have to listen, as you say, very hard. But she is so, she pronounces her words properly. She also takes her time to speak. And I'm very happy about that. Thank you, Birgit.
Thank you, Antoinette. And
Thank you,
Birgit, thank
everyone.
you so much. Over to you, Toastmaster Nick.
Hi, Krishn. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, I've lost my internet, and so I don't have any of my powers at the moment. Are you able to make the introduction for the next speech, please?
I surely can. So our next speaker is going to be Toastmaster
A
Assyl
reminder that this speech is not to be recorded.
Yes, I will do that. Thank you, Madam Timer, for being on point. Yeah. So we're going to have Madam Timer. I know you don't want to do this, but I'm not going to ask you. Please, 1 minute, 30 seconds ready. And who wants to start giving Assyl commendations, strong points of her speech? Antoinette, fire.
I
Over
must say that Assyl has a myriad of experiences with Toastmasters, and I think she should write a book on Toastmasters. Very
Thank you,
good.
Matt.
All her explanations. Very good. Keep it up.
Thank you, Madam. Toastmaster Roxanne. Please unmute
We
yourself,
can
Madam.
hear you.
Good idea. Her vocal variety was well used, especially pauses and when she spoke about the birth of her daughter and then waited as we took that in. It allowed us to feel what she may have been feeling or to somehow empathize. That's just one example in the many uses that she used of pacing, slowing down, lowering her tone, and it all fit with her I example. I also liked that engagement in the beginning when she asked us to use the chat, and then nearer the end when we needed to be reminded that we're a part of this as well, and that she acknowledged those responses by call outs and reading them. There is so much more to say, but I'll pass it on.
Thank you, Madam. Anyone else who would like to share commendations? What did you like about Assyl's speech? Last one? Please go ahead, Toastmaster Linda.
Yeah, I love the recurring joke about the Russian mobsters because you are the least like a Russian mobster of anyone that I can imagine. So I really appreciated that.
Thank you, Madam. Toastmaster Birgit, I'll come back to you in the third segment here. So we start with recommendations. How can Assyl take this speech, which is already at an excellent level, and move it higher? Anyone? Toastmaster Nick, please go ahead.
I think that in order to make this that little bit better, one of the things that I would recommend is to just move back a little bit more, because you have your frame very well, but a lot of your gestures were lost at the edge of the screen. And also sometimes the hands came up a little bit too much across the face, which if it is intended, that's great. If it's not intended, then it does distract a little bit to actually have something like that. So that's one recommendation I would give. Thank you.
Thank you, Toastmaster Nick. I have a couple of recommendations, Toastmaster Assyl. Number one, audience engagement. I was looking at the timer. There were I think only two engagement I could notice. The first one was at the start, and the second one came at 15 minutes. So there's a big gap of like 14 minutes plus where you could have engage your audience and really improve that connect at heart-to-heart moment. Number two, I think your speech, if you had strategically placed rhetorical devices, easy ones like triads, it would have really, because it would have made it like more entertaining. It was already impactful. There was an example, different levels, different kinds of people. You're talking to people from different times with different countries. I would have loved to hear people from different cultures, different countries, different mindsets, tried as well. So that's one point in your delivery that you could really stretch and grow there. Final comments? Okay, we are out of time. If anyone else, by the way, you have any recommendations for our speakers, post them in the chat to the speaker. You can do that by looking at the participants window, identify the speaker and send it to them. The final segment here, commendations, strong points, what you enjoyed about Assyl's speech. Madam Timer, 1 minute 30 seconds. And I'm going to ask Amelia, thank you for being with us. And what did you really enjoy about Assyl's speech?
Yeah, I like the way she used her personal story to answer the questions, the challenges that most people have had with their Toastmaster journey or would consider even before joining Toastmasters, and ending saying, I got my DTM. So yes, we are an audience, so we know what DTM is and we know it is a huge challenge, but the victory, I wanted more victory at the end because you'd gone through that journey, which we could all relate to. And I really love that. Yeah, so using that journey, highlighting the challenges that most people can relate to, language, culture, and moving around, and yet you made it, and telling it in such a relatable way. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. Anyone else would like to share? I know, Birgit, I'm coming back to you because I couldn't give you the floor at the start.
No, that's okay, because I was going to say what Linda said, which is I really enjoyed the humor. That's why I didn't raise my hand again. I really enjoyed the humor. And yeah, I almost felt like at the beginning, you almost had this like very storytelling vibe. You actually kept that throughout, which is interesting, because a lot of people would just start with that and then kind of go into a more normal direction. So you kind of kept that vibe throughout. Yeah, so I think that's a choice. But yeah, I love the humor. I love the fact that you're able to actually do the accents. I'm from Germany. I cannot speak English with a German accent to save my life. So, and I liked how you brought it back at the end. Most of your endings came back to something that you said at the beginning, which I liked as well.
Thank you, madam. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for sharing. This is the end of this evaluation round robin. Mr. Toastmaster, over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Krishn. Thank you again. If I can just say that Assyl, her journey at the moment is still ongoing, and she is a president of Witty Birds, which is a specialist storytelling club. And yes, definitely mother hen leadership style, and is enjoyed by all her members. That includes myself and Krishn. Thank you, Assyl, again. I'd just like to thank all of our speakers today. It's a speechathon. It's the new Toastmaster year, the first one of the new Toastmaster year. It's been excellent, but we're not finished yet. Now, Roxanne, would you like to report either in the chat or come on the screen and tell us about the timings that we had today, please?
I would like to report it by coming on the screen, in so much as I was keeping my notes in Notepad. And when I recorded Assyl's, which was 20 minutes and 6 seconds, I inadvertently deleted the rest. But what I can tell you is that nobody went over time. Nobody. And to the other speakers, I apologize, but I'm just going to blame it on Assyl.
No, that's okay. That's
If she'll be my scapegoat.
these things happen, but I appreciate that. And today's timer job was actually a little bit harder with uh, the segment of the evaluation with the 3 1.5 minute segments. So well done with that. Thank you. And in the speechathons, this is one of the things that we do. And every time we do a speechathon, we'll do something a little bit different because ultimately we are an advanced club. And one of the things that we want to do is to push our members. I'll give you an example. I joined the club nearly 2 years ago, and there was a speechathon a couple of weeks in. I thought, great, in my time zone. And I went along. I was asked, oh, would you like to be evaluator? Yep, no problem. Evaluator number one, no problem. The first speech was given. Then Roger, the Toastmaster, said, right, Nick, you have 30 seconds to prepare. I said, what? Don't we have the other 5 speakers first? No. Shotgun evaluations, literally shotgun. And I learned very much to expect the unexpected. And that's one of the things that we can play around with in this speechathon section. And also for 2 or 3 or 4 of us on this call, the time zone is a little bit better than 7:15 Eastern daylight time, right? So, and this is one of the things I really want you to do is to consider supporting this slot, and we will adjust it. For example, Birgit today, she's in on the west coast of America. Maybe we can actually next time have it 1 or 2 hours a bit later. We have 13 hours, 13 time zones represented here today in this club, from Assyl all the way to Birgit. 13 hours difference. So it is challenging to get the right time, but we will find a good time for as many people as we can every time. Mr. Krishn, do we have any other announcements on education or anything else that we need to do before we adjourn?
For today, no. I just want to ask the audience. I know the round robin style of evaluation, I sort of didn't do it the right way, but Nick helped me framing it. I just want to get your feedback. Would you like to have more of this kind of evaluation for the forthcoming speech marathons? If yes, let us know. Yes, Birgit?
I actually, yeah, my club in San Francisco does round robins. I mean, that's what we do every single meeting. But we kind of give it used to be 1 to 2 minutes so we could get more evaluators in. We do 3 per speech, and everybody gets the 2 to 3 minutes now. But yeah, we do it all the time. So I actually love it because sometimes we've had the evaluators disagree on points and other times they build up on each other. So I like it personally.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that it comes right after the speeches. I know it's a little bit more challenging for the evaluators, but I like that it comes right afterwards, because that way the speech is still fresh in everybody's mind versus waiting till the end. So yeah, I liked it.
Yep.
Points. Thank you, Madam. Madam Time.
Yes, I enjoyed it for all the reasons Birgit just mentioned, but not only as an advantage to the speaker that we get to hear more opinions, but also as potential evaluators ourselves. For instance, Linda expressed my actual thoughts like she was plucking them out of my head each time, but she framed it in a way I hadn't thought of. And I thought, well, that makes more sense in terms of giving somebody something that they can in turn do something with. And if I can't do anything with the evaluation I got, you may as well not have expressed your opinion. But she puts things in a way that you can implement. I like it. I mean, I like that I got to hear that because of a round robin.
Thank you, Madam. So I got my answer. Mr. Nick, back to you.
Thank you very much, Krishn. Thank you, everybody. Just a couple of very quick announcements. Tomorrow's meeting, we have a hopefully small section with a business meeting. And what that is we're going to be presenting the budget for this Toastmaster year. And also, we have an election for Sergeant at Arms. Antoinette, I saw your message. Do you want to stay on after the meeting? I'll have a quick chat with you. Okay? Yeah? So, and unless there's anything else, I'm going to officially close the meeting. Thank you again. And we will do the Speechathon, if not in September, then soon in October. Thank you very much. And good afternoon, good evening, good morning, good night.
All right, thank you.